All right, everyone. AOC's congressional district is beginning to metastasize with crime, and there's actually a local Republican running for office there that shot video of some of the neighborhoods they're in, which apparently once were normal, like functional. I'll tell my own story about Rutland, actually, because it's a similar story. It's not AOC herself singularly that's responsible for the failed national policies that are causing this kind of deterioration in many of America's cities, but she's in favor of all those policies, so she's one component of the puzzle, and you put it together and then you can see, oh, that's what's responsible. It's a stupid NIMBY neoliberalism. AOC doesn't have to really go to her congressional district. She also doesn't care about the living situation for her constituents any more than she did for her abuela. You remember when her Puerto Rican abuela there, when the hurricane went through Puerto Rico, people were trying to raise money to repair her home, and somehow she had the authority to take the GoFundMe down, even though it was not about her, it was about another individual. GoFundMe has some fucking problems, by the way, let me tell you. Anyway, apparently a large swath of her, the main town in her district there is basically Prostitute Haven. So people just literally standing there next to their, little, hovel brothels there and soliciting people and the homeless and fentanyl and all of these other things that we see, unfortunately, in all too many communities in the United States. What was her response, though? Her response could have been, well, I'm trying to tackle this issue. I care about my constituents, and I understand there's a problem there. You can always punt on such a thing if you're a politician. Do your lawyer speak thing and say, there's a plethora of problems, there are a plethora of solutions, I'm doing the best that I can. Be open-ended, be vacuous. It shouldn't be hard for AOC to be vacuous. That would be lawyer speak. People like me will see through it. Will her constituents? By and large, no, they won't. By the way, why would she care if there are a bunch of prostitutes in her district? I mean, she's a political prostitute, so you couldn't find a better constituency. At least they're making money. At least they've got a job. It's the oldest profession in the world anyway. Personally, I don't think it should be criminalized, but when it's in open air in front of, families and stuff like that, maybe you should have like a red light district sort of thing going on, sort of cordon it off in one area so it can be at least, semi-regulated. This is the area that you don't take your kids to. Ta-da! Problem solved. I know it sounds like out of sight, out of mind NIMBYism, but no, it's actually more pragmatic than that. It simply allows families, etc., to do their normal thing. And that doesn't include just the NIMBYist families. That includes literally everyone, including those that don't really have a problem with the whores on the street. I mean, if I walk by a prostitute and, she whistles or something, it's not going to bother me. I'm not going to... I don't want to get AIDS, so I'm not going to take up the offer, but that doesn't offend me personally. But if I was walking with my daughter in a stroller, let's say I'm in Amsterdam with my daughter, I'm not going to the red light district. It's a terrible idea. Why would any sane, functional person do that? Also, with all the weed smoke around, you get fucking contact high. No, thank you. In response to the video, that is of the various hookers and homeless people and fentanyl and all of the other things, Ocasio-Cortez issued a statement to Fox and Friends. What we are seeing here is the result of anti-immigrant policies that deny immigrants proper work permits and vending licenses and drive them into the shadows of undignified conditions. This is just one way of many that anti-immigrant policies hurt us all. Paths to citizenship and work documentation can solve the problem, but Republicans would rather block it so they can film people in their worst moments for views. Yeah, I'm sure that every one of those prostitutes is an illegal immigrant. I'm sure that every homeless person in your district is an illegal immigrant. None of these people were born in the United States, and they're simply down and out due to the deterioration of the situation in any of our inner cities. As to Rutland, for example, which is rumored to be really dicey, and for some reason people think it's a really violent city. It's not. Really, it's still small-town America. But it has deteriorated some. Even in a nice place, like I'm thinking of Rutland back when I was a teenager, so we're talking the 2000s, basically. When it was more stable and there were more people around and you didn't have as much deterioration as you have now. Even then, there was always that part of town where you probably don't go with your kid, or you don't go at night, where you're going to see drugs and prostitution and stuff, and the police largely look the other way. As long as it doesn't become a major problem or something, they're like, there's a non-enforcement sort of thing by principle. We call it the gut. We live in Vegas here. We got ourselves a gut. The gut is a chunk of town roughly behind Walmart and some of the businesses in that area, which has had a homeless encampment long ago. There was a homeless encampment even when I was a kid. And you would have like the prostitutes and the drugs and stuff. A lot of them frequent the Walmart plaza actually after dusk. If you're looking for some action and you don't care whether you get a disease, you can always go down there and there will be no problems. You pick up any white powder you want. Just make sure that it's not laced. It probably is, so you might want to avoid Rutland drugs. It's become worse though. There's another homeless encampment on the other end of town, down near the hospital. Though what we call the gut has effectively expanded. There's a lack of enforcement, there's a shortage of police, to the point where now to try to control people as far as their speed goes and stuff, they'll have these signs set up with the speed limit, and there'll be like blinking lights, like cop lights on it, so if you're going over that speed limit as you approach it, you know, you reflexively slow down, because they don't have enough police to police the roads. Things have gotten measurably worse. Not as bad as some people claim. The idea that Rutland is one of the most violent cities in the United States, I laughed so fucking hard at that. Burlington, I can imagine. Burlington's got some fucking problems, let me tell you. A lot more problems than Rutland has. I mean, we're barely even a city. It's incorporated as one, but come on. I mean, there's like, what, 15,000 people living in Rutland City? To be clear, I live in Rutland Town. I don't technically live... They're not the same thing. Rutland Town is perfectly squeaky clean and healthy and growing, and everything's perfectly fine up here. Out here in these there woods, right on the edge of the Green Mountain National Forest. In fact, I think part of Rutland Town overlaps with it explicitly. No, actually, I think you have to cross the road directly into Mendon, so you have to cross a road to get to the Green Mountain National Forest. I'm sorry for the time that it'll take you to hike that from here. 15, 20 fucking minutes. Yeah. It's become a thing all across the United States in many communities to try to blame anti-immigrant sentiment for what is commonly a problem among people that are legally in the country. Like, we've got millions of people in the country are homeless, for example. Most of them are U.S. citizens. Well, they're the ones that are really getting hammered by the border crisis. Yeah, I'm sorry, your district picked up a few illegals. Really sorry about that. Making a person a citizen doesn't magically improve their life. It does give them certain privileges, many of which you want to remove, like the right to speak freely and the right to carry a gun. She's not in favor of those, etc., and to vote as long as they vote the way that AOC wants you to vote. But that's only a small portion of the issue. I mean, you've got to address the border crisis to even take care of that side of the issue anyway. You can't simply say, well, we'll just grant blanket amnesty to everyone. Okay, you want to destabilize your district further and upend its economy to the point where it's literally non-functioning, so it goes from being seedy and part of it is Prostituteville to it being just a giant open-air brothel. I mean, it'll be like living in Victorian London in Jack the Ripper's neighborhood or something like that. It'll be like the old gangs of New York period. You know, it would be a huge problem, the Five Corners or something like that. And basically what you're going to end up with. No, in order to tackle the situation, you do have to talk about the border, but it requires that we actually staff the border. That we have an attempt to shut off the flow of illegals into the country. That's number one. Number two, though, is local policies. Well, yeah, if the cops there are just going to look the other way, of course you're going to get a bunch of prostitutes and stuff, because there's no punishment for it. I don't even think it should be criminalized, but, you know, you can address it in 1,000 different ways. Putting your head in the sand like an ostrich, and with AOC's abnormally long neck, that's going to be a difficult task. She sort of does look like an ostrich with weird teeth. Deformed beak, I suppose. Ignoring the problem doesn't make it go away. And saying that it's all about somebody else's animus doesn't exonerate you, since you literally represent the district. That's about all. Peace out.